All right, the gang's all here. Got a lot to study today in Proverbs. We left off in Proverbs chapter 10. Lolly, we had a specific homework assignment of which you wrote down. And of course, everyone studied hard all last week on this very, very difficult topic. And by the way, I'm not making fun or exaggerating. It is a very difficult topic. The two that we're going to talk about. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So how does wisdom respond to haughty eyes? Let me translate that into some more modern vernacular. How do you respond as a Christian when someone is treating you badly and treating you poorly, especially from the position of I'm better than you? And arrogance is just exuding down on top of you. How should you then respond? And we looked at a few ideas last week, like give them a karate chop in the throat, and maybe let the air out of their tires in their car or something, I don't know. All of which I think are probably not Christ-like responses. But that was homework assignment number 1. I actually had 3. And the other one was? Yeah. And alongside of it is, when is gossip? Okay, so how do you deal with someone who is mistreating you? Because you don't have any control on that. And by the way, I think it's just a rhetorical question if I ask you, is it all right to mistreat someone who mistreats you? I think we would all agree that's not right. But I think we also would all agree that every single one of us struggles to various degrees of not retaliating when someone misuses us. And especially in the area of arrogance and looking down on, talking down on. And Don is chomping at the bit here. Even though he wasn't even here last week, he is prepared. Because he is like a Boy Scout. He's always prepared.
So anyway, that's a lesson I've had to learn throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
And the lesson is that you can control how you react to somebody else, but you can't ever control what they do.
Right.
So that's the error. It's in you.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with them.
Nothing. Okay, so first part of it is clearly answered. And the lie that we sometimes tell ourselves, though, is that we can control others. We can't. You have no control over others, period. You only have control over yourself. That's what you're saying. Viktor Frankl made that very strong point in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, and that all kinds of things in life can happen to you. The only thing we really have control over is our response. Okay. That being said, now let's go to part 2 of it. How do you respond? Because chopping somebody in the throat is a response. Letting the air out of the tires is a response, but I'm saying it's not a good response, so what should we do? Yes. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Exactly. Excellent. And that's in Romans. What's another way? I mean, Jesus talked about it. Sermon on the Mount? Yes. Oh, that's okay?
But the best revenge is success, I think.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
They talk down to you. They tell you that they're better than you, and you go and end up better than them.
Prove them wrong. Oh, can anybody throw a little Bible underneath that, what he just said? Passage just came in my mind. And while I'm looking for that to support what you just said with some scripture, anybody else? How do we respond? What's that? Read it. Read it all. Doesn't that sound good? Somebody's doing you wrong? Wouldn't you like to heap some burning coals on their head? And the Lord will reward you. See, if your enemy's hungry, give him food to eat. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. In doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. Sound good, Rhonda? Huh? But the thing that is hard is doing good to him who does you wrong, right? There's a benefit in it. Right, right. Very good. Other responses. I mean, Jesus talked about this too as well on the Sermon on the Mount. Pray for them. Yeah, pray for those who... There you go, another scripture. So, I mean, when Jesus, when he talks about if someone should slap you on one cheek, you do what? Turn the other cheek, right? Okay, so over and over again, the scriptures make it very clear to respond in goodness when someone is doing you wrong. And there's a ton of things. You can go into 1 Peter. I didn't find the passage, but, when someone persecutes you or uses you badly and does you badly, again, respond in kindness. And, don't take glory or think there's some benefit in being persecuted because you're doing wrong, but rather because you're doing right. So on and on again, that's the case. Now, does that mean that we have no right for self-defense? That's another story. See, sometimes there are people who confuse the idea of retaliation with self-defense. Don't misunderstand those things. Nowhere do I see in Scripture that prohibits us from self-defense. Okay? And that doesn't mean self-defense on my reputation. It means if somebody's coming at you with a club to hit you on the head, you don't have to just sit there and get clubbed on the head. There are things that you can do to defend yourself. So don't confuse those two, especially in the area of where Jesus is talking about turn the other cheek. He's talking about revenge. He's talking about revenge and retaliation. Not talking about self-defense. Okay, so now let's get into another topical area. Yes?
One quick thought before you move on. Revenge is sweet for a minute, but acting godly is sweet for life.
Yeah, Don, another passage we could look at is, revenge is mine, says the Lord. It's not our business to revenge. Who was it that is quoted as saying, revenge is a dish best served cold? I can't tell you who that's a quote from, but it is so very true. Revenge does us no good at all. But when we respond in a Christ-like way, it's like laying up treasures in heaven. So, two other topics that are very difficult that we're going to look at as we go through Proverbs, in addition to the one we began last week, and that is, for instance, Proverbs 15. Proverbs 15 and verse 1. A harsh word stirs up anger, but a gentle answer turns away wrath. There's just a ton of places where Proverbs will talk about our response to someone who's doing us wrong. So, if you're in a situation where someone comes at you verbally, harshly, and you go up to meet it, what's that going to do? It's going to escalate it, isn't it? It's going to escalate it. It's just going to go on up and up and up and can turn out bad. But have you put into practice this proverb where someone who is angry and harsh or arrogant or whatever, and you respond gently? Sometimes it changes the entire conversation. John Maxwell, he wrote a book in Winning with People, and I went to this conference, and out of all that whole conference, the one thing that stands out to me is he said this, and I have never forgotten it. Hurt people hurt people. And so I don't know why I get inspired while I'm running, but while I was out running the other day, and I was thinking about our assignment for today, and I was thinking about God's grace. And I was thinking about, loving people who don't treat you right. And I thought, you need to give grace to those who hurt you, who are arrogant, who are mean, who are spiteful. And I said, give love, give grace to those who mistreat you because they need it the most. See, anybody who is doing that, more likely they're coming out of their own hurt. And I thought, those are the folks that need it the most. That's why we need to give more love and grace. Or we need to give love and grace to those who are being that way because they really, really need it. They're really troubled in their soul. And Vera, I think she gave one of her famous proverbs last week. And I wish I could remember it. I'm going to have to write it down. But about, can't insult me and none other would. An honest, thoughtful, well-bred man would not insult me and no other can. So, kind of attached to it is if we're understanding that these people are going through their own personal struggle and battle and hurt, it's a lot easier to be kind and loving towards them and be more sympathetic. Okay? So, anyhow, we could spend all day talking about that, but I want to shift gears. That gives you enough to think about, and as you go through Proverbs, think about our response to others and making sure that we're giving grace, that we are responding in love. We have, as Don has very well put, we have complete control over that. And to me, the ultimate example of that is Viktor Frankl in his book. He was in a German concentration camp. I can't think of things much worse that he saw and had happened to him. And he said, but they cannot take away how I'm going to respond. And I can respond in love. You can't take away my choice to find love and happiness and joy. So Proverbs bears that out in many different places. Then we talked about, we're talking about the tongue. All these Proverbs talk about so many instances of the tongue. Oh, I got to get one more passage in on our first topic. And it's right in chapter 10, verse 12. I got to get one more, and then we'll shift gears. Chapter 10, verse 12. Hatred stirs up dissension. Again, those people are hurting. They're hateful. They're mean. It stirs up dissension. But look at here. Love covers all wrongs. See? So we need to respond in love because those folks need it and need it bad. Down in verse 19 of the same chapter, when words are many, sin is not absent. Oh boy, convicting to preachers. But he who holds his tongue is wise. And there's an old saying, something to the effect that it's, I'm not even going to get it right, so I'm not even going to try it. Something about, I am going to try it because that's just how I am. That it's better to keep your mouth closed and somebody not know about you, or not know that you're a fool or something, or open up your mouth and remove all, and remove all doubt. Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to talk about in regards to our speech. Couple of issues that were that I brought up last week are two that are really, in some ways, ambiguous, and yet they're not, but we make them ambiguous. It's kind of like gluttony, of which Proverbs talks about. I'll never forget many, many years ago, I was a brand spanking new preacher, a lot dumber than I am now, but we were having this fellowship meal, and I was going to preach for like one of the first times at this church, and we were having this fellowship meal. And good old Ernest Gladstone, oh my goodness, he was a character. And so he was he liked to make fun of me. I was really young. I was about 24 years old, and we were eating at a potluck, and he was really teasing me in front of a bunch of people about what I was going to preach that night, and I can't remember the exact nature of his insult, but as he was shoving in another mouthful of cake, I said, "No, I'm preaching on gluttony tonight." I thought I was really a smart aleck. I was, but that's a topic that we like to laugh at, and we don't really want to talk about because it's one that we all enjoy, and so Proverbs covers it. It covers it, and we'll find some of those, and I'll be really proud if I can get some of you to pull out a couple of those Proverbs that deal with this issue. But it's one we kind of just wink at, It's not a real sin, right? And a couple others probably in this order. I don't know. You can put it whatever order you want. Gossip's another one. And it's probably gossip, I think, is one of the most favorite indoor sports known to mankind. And when we think of gossips, who's the first group of or gender that we think of that gossip? They always say women, but we're going to look and see in Proverbs it talks about men who are the ones that yakety 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 yakety. Okay, so it's not gender specific by any means, for sure. Now we know that statistically speaking, that the gentler sex loves just speaks more words. They're more verbal, but that doesn't mean they're gossipy. They just love to communicate. The whole thing, they speak 20,000 words a day. We speak 10,000. We have our words done by the time we get home, and they still got 10 grand more to spend. It's like, But that's a whole nother class, and Donna can cover that at the marriage retreat. All right, not me. But it is not something just for women. So what is gossip? Well, that's something somebody else is talking about, not me, right? I'm not a gossip. It's that other person that's talking. So let's get a definition. What is the definition of gossip? And I'm throwing that question out to you because I know that you prepared on it all last week. Right? How would you define gossip? And again, no one will be made to feel bad because they don't have I'm not looking for a specific answer, even though there is a Hebrew direct definition of gossip, but that we still have our own definitions of gossip. Don, what do you think gossip is? A conversation of speculation. Well, we'll kick it around. We'll see what everybody thinks. One thing usually when people define gossip, they say it's not gossip if it's true. Can it be gossip if it's true? Very good. So it is a conversation. It could be speculation, or it could be truth. But you got no business talking about it. All right? The Hebrew would bear that out in that the root word, a root word then grows in definition, but it's the whisper, Hey, Don, you hear about James? Huh? Yeah. He's a plumber. All right? Yeah. So anyhow, it's the whisperer. It's the one who's taking stuff and talking about that they have no business talking about it to this other person. There used to be a four-way test of whether I should talk about something, and I forgot what the four-way test is. Rotary has it. You should know the four-way test, right? What is it? Let's hear it.
First,
is it the truth?
Second, is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship?
Will it build goodwill, and better friendships? I think you said that twice, didn't you? Oh, okay. And anyhow, there's this four-way test, and it really, if you think about the four-way test, it's like, should I be talking about this? And by the way, there is not an exemption if you proceed with, bless her little soul. Have you heard that expression before? Oh, bless so-and-so, but boy, is she a skank. Oh, my goodness. You know, it's like anything can come after bless her soul. You know? Somebody had a hand up, and I missed them. I know I saw it. Vera May. Oh, yeah. Oh, more. I'm going to say after 36 years of being a Christian, and now looking back, and I'm not claiming fault-free in any of this. You understand that, right? But looking back, I think, prayer times when we're doing prayer requests, there's been more gossip exchanged than in any other forum that I've known personally. And somehow, pray for Jim. He really is, he's a good plumber, but, he really is cheating all of his customers, or something. I mean, you could just go on and talk about it, but he's got some real issues, Jim really likes to gamble a lot, and he's, and then go off on all this and by the way, none of this is true about Jim, all right? I'm just creating an example. So and then you start talking about all this private information. No, not everybody needs to know. Nor should they be hearing. It doesn't meet even Rotary's four-way test. Okay? And so there are a lot of different subtle forms of gossip. But let's talk about real quickly, why does God hate it when people gossip? What stands to be damaged when a person engages in gossip? What happens? Huh? Division. Friends are divided. Relationships are torn. Reputations are shattered. It's kind of like, this one preacher's example is really corny, but it always has stuck with me. And this guy was trying to teach this woman about gossip and so on, and he took her out onto a bridge, and he had this bag full of feathers, and he threw them out to the wind. He said, "Okay, now go back and get those feathers." I can't. He says, "Neither can we get back the words that you have spoken," that kind of thing. And that's true. Once our words go out, especially today, how does a lot of gossip take place today? We all know. Facebook, social media. When you've tweeted something, when you have put something on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and it's out there. Now, how are you going to get it back? Yeah. Oh, now get it back in the tube. Oh, I love that. And that's more modern than feathers. For adults, too. I see a sermon illustration coming up. Get one of those jumbo-sized things of toothpaste to bring and squirt it all over the floor here. That's a great example. Now get it back in the tube. You can't. It's already out. Damage has been done. What are you all laughing about back there? Well, that's the point. You got to do some kind of damage with it, Only the practical people think about that stuff. I'm just thinking it's a great idea. But that's a great illustration. How are you going to get it back in? Damage has been done. It's already gone out. And so, Proverbs there's several Proverbs we'll look at as we get further into this that talk about our speech and our temper and things like that better as a person, and this is all about discipline. It's all about self-discipline. How many times I thought in my lifetime, I wish I had just shut my mouth. I wish I had not have said something, and you feel bad, but the toothpaste is out of the tube. It's done its damage. It's on the floor. Donna's upset and the carpet's getting messed up. I mean, what can you do? Right? It's so true. And golly, if I just kept my mouth shut. So looking at how to discipline our tongue. Better as a person can control themselves, Proverbs would say, than a person who can take an entire city. And matter of fact, James, of course, you knew we were going to be going back and forth between Proverbs and James, because James is what? It is the Proverbs of the New Testament, right? Not many of you, well, I don't want to read that part, but he talks a lot about the power of the tongue in chapter 3. We put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us. We can turn the whole animal. He's talking about the power of a tongue. Take ships for an example. Although they're so large and driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder, comparing it like to a tongue, Wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boast. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. And then just talking about the tongue and how, salt water can't come out of a fresh spring. And as Christians, we need to have God take control of our tongue. So gossip comes in a lot of different ways, the whisper. So let's look at a couple of Proverbs then. Proverbs 11 and verse 3. Proverbs verse 11 and verse 13. Let's start right at verse 11. Proverbs 11 verse 11. I'll get it out. Proverbs 11 verse 11. Let's pick right up there. Through the blessing of the upright a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is destroyed. By the mouth of the wicked it's destroyed. All right? Verse 12. A man, I'm coming at this stereotype that only women are the ones who gossip. A man who lacks judgment derides his neighbor. That's gossip. Deriding their neighbor. Slander is a form of gossip. A man who lacks judgment derides his neighbor, but a man of understanding holds his tongue. 13. A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy man keeps a secret. It's tough sometimes. It's very tough because, combining James, looking at this restless evil, this power in the tongue and in the almost humanly impossible task of keeping it under control and the damage that it can do. We need God's power to strengthen us in this. Proverbs 18 and verse 8. Proverbs 18 and verse 8. Now, we got to start at verse 6. Proverbs 18 and verse 6. A fool's lips bring him strife, and his mouth invites a beating. A fool's mouth is his undoing, and his lips are a snare to his soul. The words of gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to a man's innermost parts. Okay? So, they're very tempting. They're very juicy. We just want to take it in. How many of us, I've been talking all morning about the one who's speaking words of gossip. How about the ears that hear it? And this is something I pray for more courage to do. When someone comes to you with gossip, do you stop them? Or do you lean in a little closer to hear? And I understand the challenge in that. To be able to say, time out. I really don't need to hear that. We really shouldn't be talking about that. And Many years ago, see, I've done a lot of work with people from down south. Down south, they have a whole different culture, especially the older people, the southern culture of many, many decades gone by. So I was at this funeral meal, sitting around the table, and there's an older couple there. It's the wife and the husband. And at the funeral dinner, she just began to tell a tale that she shouldn't be talking about. She hadn't got into the first sentence, and the man turned to her and said, "Shut up." And they continued to talk as if everything's fine. You know, the amazing thing is, she shut up. You know, but I don't agree with his method, right? He was disrespectful to her, but they've been married like 56 years. How do we stop that? He wanted to stop that for her before it got started. She shouldn't have been talking about what she was talking about. There's no doubt about that. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't have the guts to tell her to shut up, nor did I find it good manners to tell an elderly lady to shut up. But then again, I really wanted her to shut up. You know, so how do you handle that situation? And I remember one person putting it this way, is that, would you allow somebody to come up to you and say, "I'm going to puke on you"? Well, I don't want that puke on me. I don't want somebody to throw up on me. But why do we, well, I know why. We don't want to appear rude like that man did. I'll never forget it. I just thought, how in the world? I mean, I know she was gossiping, but golly, that was really harsh and that was disrespectful to her. But I am also thankful she shut up, you know. So how do you handle that? Do you follow what I'm saying? It's just as bad for us to sit there, because this proverb writer says, oh man, it's like choice morsels, and it's like, this is juicy stuff. I kind of want to hear some of it, you know. I'm not doing it. Hey, they're the one gossiping, not me. But I'm receiving it. So what do you think? And by the way, this is again one of those things. I'm not going to any direct answer here. I'm not looking for anything specific. I'm curious what your thoughts are. How do you handle a situation where you're now riding in a car with someone and they're gossiping? What do you do? Don, thoughts?
Yes, I don't know exactly how that would work out. You can tell them to stop in a very kind way.
Mm-hmm. Tell me how you would say it in a kind way. And I'm not. I'm really.
Just change the subject.
Okay. Just change the subject while they're in the middle of a sentence, or when they finish, or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, okay, good. Change the subject. I think that's very viable. Don't you guys think that'd be a good thing to change the subject? Now, how about them lions, man? You know, wait, that might be gossip too. I don't know. I gotta watch that one. Any other ideas? I mean, this could be really constructive to all of us. How do we do it? And is politeness more important than stopping gossip? I think so too. Mm-hmm.
If it's not a concern to us, then I don't want to hear it. You know, that's a different conversation with my kids than it would be if Donna was talking to me. We have a different relationship.
It is.
So I'd probably prefer to changing the subject than, you know, redirecting if it was someone that I wasn't supposed to.
Oh yeah, that's an excellent point. Depending on your relationship. I remember when I was a shop chief, and I had 20-some employees working for me. It was easy. You guys aren't going to talk like that. By the way, I wasn't real popular. I became a Christian, and things changed in the shop, and I didn't allow people to steal anymore, and I didn't allow them to talk like that. And I had my assistant who was privately trying to say, Tom, you got to understand, this is the world. And I said, I'm in charge here. And that relational aspect is huge. When I'm in charge of my kids, enough, stop. But I probably wouldn't talk that way with Tom. Yeah, you know. But I think I could have and if it's somebody I don't even know, I just walk away and leave them there, So, Tom, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just thinking of your example where you're in the car with somebody, and I can maybe consider myself, riding with a coworker or something like that, they start taking in a boss or another employee or something, and I think there's a point where you can't walk away because you're stuck in the vehicle because
Yeah.
you work with this person. And sometimes it's possible to just say, there's a topic I just don't want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah,
Take yourself out of the conversation.
yeah.
Take yourself out of the conversation is not something I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. Just say, I'm sorry, but I'd really rather not. Comfortable. I'd rather not talk about this. One thing that I have put into practice in a couple of situations is when they're talking negatively about somebody, I try to find something positive to say. And pretty soon they get the point, And it's really tough. I like, tying in Christine's comment about relationships and looking at them downward, but also upward. What if it's your boss? And your raise and your job and stuff are, kind of affected here, right? And so that has to be handled with kid gloves, right? We have to be careful there. But what is more important? And we have to ask that. Huge. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Oh, let me tell you my theory on that. Yeah. Yeah, because husband and wife, I like that. Because in Genesis 2:24, it says, "A man shall leave his father and mother. He'll be united to his wife, and the two will become one." So when he's coming home and he's talking to you, he's just talking to himself. See, so anybody tells me something, they think I'm not talking to my wife, I'm talking to myself. How can I not talk to myself? All right? So your complete confidence of one another. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I follow what you're saying, but and we're running out of time. Actually, we've run out of time because in regards to marital communication, in which we're talking about sharing struggles and challenges and things, we also need to be careful because this gossip thing has so many different faces that we could, in fact, gossip with one another and be careful that we don't. As a matter of fact, I hope that my wife would correct me if I'm slandering another human being in her eyes. Slander is slander is slander is slander. And when I'm cutting someone down to ribbons with my tongue, where I should not be doing that, whether it's I'm talking to myself or I'm talking to my wife myself, I'm not doing good. So there are a lot of different faces of this communication, and I totally agree with your point where we need to be able to support and encourage one another, and it will pass the four-way test, especially if it's going to help Robert be better in his interpersonal relationships at work and things. So, but it's a sneaky, insidious thing, this gossip thing is, right? So Maybe we'll talk about that more in Donna's class. But I'm running out of time. Go ahead. Last word. Yeah. Oh, good one. Bring the prayer thing into it. Why not? Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful. I got more I could tell you about that too. How you can change the topic. Sometimes you can send a convicting message without saying a word.